Hello, Facebook family. It is me, Shannon LaBruyere, and I am live and loving it tonight. It is Sunday, July 14th. I can hardly believe we're halfway through the month of July. And I want to welcome you to tonight's edition of Sunday Night Live. So hi, Carol, glad to have you. Shay, so glad you're jumping on. Excuse me. We are going to have a great time tonight because we are going to talk about a new way to look at the word no. So I'm excited to share with you some of my insights that I've gained over time, and even as recently as this week. Having a no create such a huge impact in my life that I am not sure just how huge it actually is. So it's going to be awesome. Michelle, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. A first timer on Sunday Night Live. So glad you joined us. Welcome. All right, I'm going to get started in just a minute, but before I do, I want to ask anybody who's not aware to go visit YouTube. If you go and watch videos on YouTube, you can type in my name, Shannon LaBruyere, in the search bar, and you will see that I have a YouTube channel. And I would be so honored if you would just hit subscribe. It's really easy if you already subscribe to some videos on YouTube. And if you don't subscribe to any channels, it's really easy to do. All you need is an email address and you'll be able to subscribe. Anytime I have a video that uploads there, you'll be able to see it. Easy peasy. The whole Sunday Night Live archive is there. So it's a great place for you to be able to go and look up items by topic. You can check out some of my previous work. You can start at the very beginning and watch snippets of each one, like my good friend Carol said, and see how much I've improved over time, right? So lots of reasons to like the YouTube channel. And when I get 100 subscribers, not just viewers, but subscribers, I'm able to name it something relevant. So it doesn't have to be the gibberish they have there. So I'd be honored if you did. Check out my YouTube channel. All right, let me see. Ken, I'm glad you're here. Paul, I'm glad you're here. I think I saw Barbara here. Let me just make sure. Yes, Barbara, glad you're on. Welcome, everybody. Let's get started. We are going to talk about no. All right. So we all know that it's technically okay to say no, right? I mean, if you read women's magazines, you know this for sure. Guys are often told, you know what, buddy, you're just going to have to learn to say no. We've all heard it, and we know that it's okay to say no, and yet we still continue to beat ourselves up when we say it. Raise your hand if that's you, right? You get the guilty feeling like, oh, I can't believe I did that. We find it difficult to say no. So I want to take a different angle on the word no tonight. I want to introduce you to a new way, a new mindset about saying no that is going to transform your life from this point forward. Because instead of beating yourself up with guilt and questioning yourself, you're going to be congratulating yourself and saying, yes, great job, Shannon, for being courageous. Hey, Linda, I'm so glad you're able to watch live. It's great to have you here. All right, so we all know it's okay to say no, and yet we still have trouble saying no. This is the new way I want to invite you to look at it. Your no is often necessary for a better yes. And it also may be a better yes for somebody else too. It's not just all about you. It's not just all about me. Me being able to say no is a powerful, powerful thing in the lives of the other people that I'm trying to impact and influence. So there's more than just selfish reasons for learning to say no. So when we say no, we are actually making possible somebody else's yes. We're doing a good work out there. We're being generous. So we're going to talk about two kinds of no. And if you'd like to write these down, I'd suggest that you do jot them down. just because it helps us learn when we write things down, but also this is pretty good stuff. So you might want to refer to it, or you might want to share it with your team when you get back to work tomorrow. A nice little thing to do with your Sunday Night Live tidbits is to go into the office and share some of them at your staff meeting. And I don't even care if you give me credit. In fact, I would love it if you went in and acted like the leader you are and shared something you learned with your team that's going to help them be better in their work and at home. So feel free to use this lesson tonight with some of your own personal examples with your team this week, this coming week. I would love if you did that, and they would love you for it. All right, so the 2 kinds of no. The first one is the intentional no. That's the one that you did it on purpose, you put thought into it, and you intentionally, mindfully, with a reason said no. Then the other kind is what I'm calling the circumstantial no, and I'm hoping that's the right word, but it's the one that circumstances force us to use. The circumstantial no is the one where we had a flat tire and we just can't make it. We have to say no. Okay, so it's the one that we didn't plan, that we didn't necessarily intentionally choose, but it just turned out we had to say no. All right, let's start with the intentional no. Are you with me? Ooh, Audrey, I'm so glad you're with me. Yes, just in the nick of time. All right, so we're going to start with the intentional no. So this is the definition of the intentional no. It's our responsibility to say no when saying yes makes it difficult or impossible to do what we know is important. I'm going to say that again slowly so you can write it down if you want. It is our responsibility to say no when saying yes makes it difficult or impossible for us to do what we know is really important. This is not always easy, but it is very necessary if we want to be the kind of impactful leaders that actually make a difference and have lives of significance. We can't live lives of significance if we are not mindful of our priorities and learn to say no when things interrupt them. So, the intentional no says, I am exercising my responsibility to say no to that request, that opportunity, that great deal, whatever it is. I'm exercising my responsibility to say no to that because it will stop me, it will hold me back, it will prevent me from doing the good that I know I'm supposed to do. So, for the intentional no to be at work in your life, you have to know what your priorities are, because that's how we get good at using the intentional no. Thanks, Carol. I love that heart. If we know our priorities, it makes the intentional no makes sense, but we have to know our priorities. So I can tell you what mine are. I make my decisions. I say no when I'm protecting my relationship with God. I'm protecting my well-being. I'm securing my relationship with my family. I'm securing my relationship with the people I serve. Those are my priorities. And as we practice saying the intentional no, we know that we're doing it because we're protecting something better. We're actually getting a better yes because we said no to those things that were making it difficult or impossible for us to live into what we know we're supposed to be doing. So, does that make sense? All right, so here's the thing. The intentional no is often difficult for us to exercise. Now, we can get good at it with practice, but it is often difficult to get started using the intentional no. We feel a little bit better if we blame it on circumstances. So we put it into another category. So it's like, I couldn't help it, or, I had to say no, even though we knew the reason we said no was for a good reason that mattered to us, but we try to blame circumstances. Oh, I would really love to go to that basket weaving activity that you've got scheduled, but, it just so happens I have to go to my great aunt Stella's birthday, so, sometimes that makes it easier, but when we start exercising our intentional no muscles, we don't blame it on anything because we know there's a really valid reason why we're saying no. So that's why it's hard. Here's some of the reasons why it's hard, some specific categories. So I want you to think, do any of these apply to you? Do you find it difficult to say no because of arrogance? I know everybody's shaking your head. Not me. I'm not arrogant. Not me. No. I don't say no because I think so highly of myself. I want you to think about that for just a minute. Have you ever said this phrase, I am the only one who can fill in the blank? I'm the only one who can XYZ. That's nonsense. That is nonsense. Just call it what it is. That is not true. You are not the only one who can send out the announcements about the potluck dinner, make the meatballs, make the macaroni salad, make the lemon meringue pie, and make the fruit punch. You are not the only one who can decorate the room for the party. You are not the only one who can clean up the trash, wash the dishes, bag the leftovers. You get the idea. You are not the only one who is capable of doing those things. I'm seeing some hearts, right? That resonates. Yes, you are not the only one. How about in the workplace? Have any of you ever worked alongside a manager or a supervisor or maybe even an executive who needed to retire? They needed to go. Their attitude was terrible. They were sucking everybody's morale. They were miserable to be there. And yet they still stayed. And at every meeting, they would tell you why. You know what? You guys are just never going to be able to make it without me. That's not true. If that person left in a heartbeat, maybe their heart stopped beating, things would carry on. We fool ourselves with arrogance when we think that we can't be replaced and nobody else can do it. If you are not saying no because you think you have to do it because no one else can, I want you to reconsider that. Carol says it takes a long time to learn that. That is the truth. And I think all of us are on a learning journey. And that's why we're talking tonight, to get a little better, strengthen that intentional no muscle that says, I am going to say no because it's interfering with the other things that are more important in my life. Another category of the intentional no, where we need to exercise it but we don't, it's hard for us to say no, is this sense of obligation, or you might want to call it guilt. Hey Mike, I'm glad you jumped on. Welcome. All right, so this is what that sounds like when we're not using our no properly. We do things like this. We say to ourselves, we ought to be eating lunch at our desk because everybody else is. And so we say yes when we know we should say no. We say yes to peer pressure. We give in. But then we're actually saying no to getting some exercise and fresh air. What would happen if we said no to that pressure? What would happen if we said no to eating lunch at our desk and said yes to going out and getting the fresh air? How would our afternoon change? How would our ideas improve? How would our relationships be better because we will have gotten a new perspective and gotten out of that cubicle, right? So a lot of times obligation and guilt tells us that we ought to be eating lunch at our desk, and so we say yes to that pressure, right? How about this one? We ought to donate our services to every charity that asks us. Now that sounds like it's a good idea, right? So we ought to donate all of our services to every charity that asks. And so we say yes to being busy 7 nights a week. We say yes to being stretched too thin. And then we say no. We say no to the business opportunities that would allow us to create funds and have finances that would allow us to have bigger, bolder, more significant impact. Right? We let guilt and obligation convince us to say yes. But the no that we're putting out there without saying it costs us so much, right? So that's another reason why we don't exercise our intentional no, because we feel guilty about it. We feel bad. We ought to be fill in the blank. How about this one? We ought to be productive, right? We ought to be productive. So we say yes to doing our employee's job because we have a half hour free on our calendar. And that means, without ever saying it, we say no to holding someone accountable, to helping them grow, and developing them as a person and a professional. We say yes when we know we should say no. And then we're turning down the opportunity for somebody to grow. This is the truth. It's a truth bomb. This is the truth. Our thoughtful, intentional no sets up the other people on our team for a yes. Where you can start saying no out of the goodness and generosity of your heart. Where could you start saying no out of generosity and kindness and intentional leadership to the people on your team or in your family or on the PTA, right? Where would you saying no actually be better for the people than you saying yes? Endure the discomfort of saying no because it's the right thing to do. It takes courage to do that. It is not comfortable for us to say no. So I'm going to take a page out of my mentor John Maxwell's book, and this is what he says to do. Look in the mirror in the morning and in the evening and say 50 times, no, 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 I won't be able to. No, 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 no. Just get used to hearing yourself say it. It will help you to actually say it when you make the decision to be intentional about how you say no. All right? Everybody with me? Maggie, I'm glad you jumped on. You're here for the fun part. Well, it's not really the fun part. It's all fun, right? We're switching to the second category of no. The first category was the intentional no. The second category we're going to talk about is the circumstantial no. Now, this is the one that we cannot help. There's an emergency. Like I said, we have a flat tire. We already have an event booked on that day. And we beat ourselves up over these no's. We feel like we dropped the ball a lot of times. Has anybody ever done that? You just felt so bad, but you couldn't help. You couldn't do it. It's tough. Yeah, I'm getting some hearts. Yeah, because circumstances outside of our control make it impossible for us to fulfill a commitment that we made, to be at an event that we committed to going to finishing a task that we said we would do. When circumstances outside of our control make it necessary for us to say no, we suffer with unnecessary guilt. And I am here to tell you right now, you can just throw that guilt away. There is no need for it. No need for it. When circumstances outside of our control make it impossible for us to fulfill a commitment, to follow through on something we said we would do, to commit to an event or an organization that under ordinary circumstances we would love to do, there is no need to beat yourself up over it. Hi, Tammy. I'm glad you're here. Welcome. All right. Here's the new way to look at this kind of no. Our no sets someone else up for a yes. And we can't always know how powerful that yes is, but the gap we leave when we have to say no, circumstances outside of our control. I'm not talking about somebody who's being irresponsible, who just decides they don't want to follow through. We're not talking about that. That's a whole different issue. And you guys aren't that. That's not how you roll. What I'm talking about are those times when we really can't do anything about it. It's outside of our control. The plane did not leave the airport. We will not be landing in Seattle. We will not be there to speak at the luncheon, right? It's just, I can't walk to Seattle. That is devastating, but there's no need to feel guilty about it. This is why the gap that our no makes will be filled, and it will be filled by somebody who has an opportunity that they would not have gotten otherwise. And it will allow people to step up into situations and roles that they maybe never had to deal with before, but they will, and they will be stronger and better off for it. All right. One of the most powerful things that ever happened in my career was when I was asked on just an hour and a half notice to do a press conference in the wake of the anthrax attacks on the Postal Service. So you can remember, some of you, back in 2001, that was a pretty scary time, and there had been anthrax attacks within the Postal Service and people had died. And there was a lot of fear surrounding those attacks, the use of the mail. The employees were worried about their safety. Our customers were worried about if they could get envelopes. It was a big deal. And I was asked with about an hour and a half to prepare to do a press conference to address the media here in the Detroit metro area. And then ultimately it was picked up nationally and showed across the country. The press conference that I gave, it was one of the most impactful things that I ever did in my career. It stretched me way past my comfort zone. I had never done a press conference before, and I was just a little bit wigged out about it. Okay, I was scared. I was flat out scared, but I did it. It established me as an expert in my field, not just in the Postal Service, but also in the public relations field. It was a great addition to my career. It really enhanced the opportunities that I had. It enhanced my opportunities to be able to speak to the public on other items, other issues from the Postal Service that were far more positive. It extended my reach and my impact exponentially. I had significant, meaningful impact on customers and employees through that press conference. And why did I get that opportunity? That big yes for me, that yes that changed my career, changed the way that I looked at myself, changed the way that our customers and our employees looked at dealing with the mail. Oh my gosh, the reason I got to do that was because somebody else had circumstances beyond their control and they had to say no. There was a person ahead of me in line. He had more seniority, he had more experience, and he was the go-to person in times of crisis. And circumstances beyond his control meant that he had to say no. He couldn't do it. And I got to step up. I got to learn something new. I got to expand my reach. I got to expand my influence. Like Bob DiGiacomo said, I did it afraid, but I did it. If he had not said no, and he felt terrible about it, he was so apologetic, he was beside himself. I'm so sorry, what can I do to help? You know what? I'm going to be fine. And I stepped up and I did it because somebody had to say no. They felt terrible about it. They shouldn't have, because that changed my life. When we have circumstances beyond our control that impact what's going on in our careers, in our lives, and we can't follow through, just know that our loss is somebody else's gain. Our no means yes for somebody that may have never gotten the opportunity to do it, right? I had this week a really, really beautiful experience that just illustrated to me the power of somebody else's no, circumstances beyond their control, and how it could impact my yes in such a powerful way. My husband Ken and I have been blessed to share our home since Thursday, and it'll be through tomorrow, with a gentleman named Pastor Samuel. He is a missionary from Uganda traveling through the United States and ministering to us in churches. And Pastor Samuel is the pastor of a church and a community and a school, and they've got a lot of charitable works that go on. He's also the overseer of over 400 churches in Uganda. And somebody, I don't even know who it was, somebody had said, yes, we can host Pastor Samuel. Pastor Samuel can stay at our house. He can rest here while he's preaching and teaching in this Romeo, Washington area. And they were unable to follow through on that. I don't even know why. I just know that they had to say no at the last minute. And I bet that they felt really bad about it. But I want to tell you what that has opened up for us. Their no meant that we could say yes to hosting a powerful, influential world leader. Somebody who has lived a life that I have never even come close to. Somebody who has major impact in areas of Africa that I've not even seen in pictures. Somebody who has wisdom and knowledge, who's a powerhouse for God. That man, because somebody else had to say no, is at my house. And this is what's even cooler about that. We've been having conversations, and my husband and Pastor Samuel have been coming up with some really, really cool ideas about how they can equip people to have vocations and serve the needs of their communities and begin programs that are a win for the people who are executing them, a win for the people who benefit from them, a win for everyone involved. Creativity, excitement, significance happening in my house these past few days because somebody, sadly and regrettably, was forced to say no at the last minute. But it has opened up a powerful yes for us. Don't heap guilt on yourself for saying no. Trust that there is a reason for everything and that good can come of it. When you have to say no, it is opening up a powerful, powerful yes for somebody else. And they may not handle it the way you handled it. They might not do it exactly the way you would have done it, but they will do it and they will learn from it and they will grow from it. And you have no idea how that unintentional, unplanned no changes everything for the people who get to say yes. Knowing that, can you get your brain around maybe saying no just a little bit more? Using that intentional no and saying, I'm not going to be able to do that, no, and leaving a gap for somebody else to fill and doing that intentionally. And then giving yourself permission if you have to say no because of circumstances outside of your control, giving yourself permission to not beat yourself up, giving yourself permission to trust that the best thing is happening and that somebody else is going to get something really good and valuable because you had to say no. How does that change no for you? My mind was blown. My mind was blown when I started thinking about the power of no and what that's done in my life. The intentional no's and the unintentional no's. So, this is our wrap up. Our thoughtful, intentional no sets up our team for a yes, and it sets us up for a better yes. Where can I start saying no out of the goodness of our heart and out of a place of courage and compassion and desire to see people around us grow? Where can we start saying no? I would love for you, if you're taking notes, write that down. Where are you going to start saying no? The next thing is, are circumstances beyond our control? No. Creates a yes for someone else that can lead to incredible things. All right, let's see what Bermuda Bob has to say. He said, let's add that to the 7-day experiment and make it an 8-day experiment. Practicing saying no. Bermuda Bob has a 7-day video series happening called the 7-day experiment. And so, Bob, if you wanted to put a link down there in the comments, people could go and check it out if they'd like to. Bob is a font of wisdom, and he's a hoot. He's got a dry sense of humor, I'm just going to warn you right now, but I think you would enjoy it. So you can check out his 7-day experiment, and by all means, Bob, add a day 8. I like the extra day myself, especially if it's something as powerful as how do we say no and do it in a meaningful, intentional way. Ricky, I am glad you jumped on. Julie, I saw that you jumped on, and that was awesome. Let me see who else I missed. Javon, I'm glad you're here. Leslie, thank you for being here. Heather, yay, I'm so glad you're here. I think I got everybody. All right, you guys, that's it for tonight. We're talking about how to say no and how to look at saying no in a way that allows us to grow as leaders, be more intentional about how we're using our time, aligning with our priorities, all that good stuff. But yeah, all right, just say no. I think that's a good slogan. Maybe I'll adopt it. Just say no. And for those of you who have no trouble saying no, next week on Sunday Night Live, I am going to talk about a new way to look at yes. So if you have trouble saying no, tonight was your gig. If you have trouble saying yes, next Sunday Night Live, you're not going to want to miss it. Take care, everybody. God bless you. Ricky, thanks for being here. You'll have to bop up to the beginning and watch from the front, but I'm so glad you made it here just in time for me to say goodbye. You guys are great. I love you. Mwah! Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Bye.